Asian rituals, and if so, what are they and what do they mean? Like, for example, the one on December 20th, what is that for?
That is called the Yule ritual, and all the rituals in Wicca are based upon different times of the year for ancient man and what they used to do, like harvesting the crops, planting the crops. A Yule is generally a ritual of Thanksgiving. The winter solstice is the longest night of the year. So after that, the nights are going to be shorter. So that's what they're doing. They're kind of welcoming the end of the longest night of the year and bringing in the sunshine. It's the time when the Holly King dies and the Oak King is born. And what that means is like, you know how in the New Year's they have the baby and the old man? It's kind of like similar to that. You know, the one king dies and then the new king is reborn. It's also, I mean, not necessarily totally, because there's Ostara, which happens at the same time as Easter does. All the pagan holidays coincide with all the Christian holidays. Jesus was not born on the 25th of December. Don't believe me, check biblical scholars and they'll tell you that that's not the case. They moved the birth of Jesus to December 25th because that's the winter solstice. So they were trying to get the pagans to convert from paganism into Christianity. So that's what was going on, and that's why. But there's another one that specifically speaks of rebirth, which is called Ostara, that happens the same time Easter does. So what does the rituals mean? Well, they have definite meanings depending on what ritual it is. There's one ritual called Beltane, that's like the sex Sabbath. That's when you were supposed to breed the animals.
Yeah.
Because if you have an animal born right before winter and winter hits, then the baby animal dies. If the baby is allowed to mature as long as it can before winter hits, then it has a greater chance of survival. Time to harvest the crops, time to plant the crops. Those types of rituals are what the pagan calendar is based on. They have 8 rituals of the year. They call them Sabbats, and they hold ritual to honor whatever that specific Sabbath is about.
Yeah.
What do the Sabbats mean to me? It's just another way of honoring the earth.
Can you identify and explain some specific symbols of this culture?
All right, the pentagram, which is a 5-pointed star. Many people freak out and go, it's the devil's star, you know, it's an evil thing. But to be quite honest with you, the first recorded use I can find of it, and I've done a lot of research on this, is Pythagoras and the mathematical society he had, because the pentagram has 5 triangles in it using, 10 triangles using 5 straight lines. The top point means spirit. The other 4 points mean earth, air, fire, and water. A lot of people say the 2 legs it stands on, the 2 bottom points, are earth and water, and the 2 upper points are fire and air, but the top point is spirit. Now, when you show it with the top point up, that means spirit over matter. Positive thing. When you invert it or turn it upside down, it means matter over spirit. A negative thing. Much like inverting a Christian cross is seen as a rebellion against Judeo-Christianity, inverting the pentagram has been associated with perhaps devil worship or Satanism. Keep in mind the pagans do not believe that Satan exists. So there is no devil or dark god in paganism. There is the Lord and the Lady. So they view the feminine, the feminine divine as important as the masculine divine. They view the divine in male and female. And then they hold the 4 elements, earth, air, fire, and water, as sacred. And on a Wiccan altar, you always see a male and female divinity, and then representations of the 4 elements. Now, different pagans follow different paths. Some may follow a Nordic path and revere the Nordic gods, Odin, Thor, Freya. Some may follow a more Greek path, a Roman path, Jupiter, Aphrodite, Hera. But they all, look at male and female divinity. That's, so that's some of the symbolism along with the pentagram. Now, if you put a circle around the pentagram, that becomes the pentacle, and the circle represents eternity, no beginning and no end.
Okay, how do they communicate with each other? Do they have their own codes or forms of communication that are different from standard forms of communication?
There's certain ritual greetings that they would give each other. I'll give you an example. There's when 2 pagans meet, they may say "Merry meet," "Merry part," and "Merry meet again." So one would say "Merry meet," the other one would say "Merry part," and then they would say "Merry meet again" together. And this would symbolize to each other that they are in that line of belief. It would be like when you talk about a code, is there like a thieves language like the Russian mobsters have? No, nothing like that. But those are types of things that they would say there. Blessed be. That would be another one. If someone would say blessed be to you, that's definitely super pagan. They would, that would identify yourself when you talk about things wearing pinnacle rings and stuff like that, when you see that.
Is there a social hierarchy? And if so, what is it? And how does a subculture be organized?
The social hierarchy would only exist within a coven. No one's higher than another, except you have the high priest and the high priestess that are conducting the ritual. And the high priest and the high priestess are considered the authorities during that point in time, but no one has control over another person. That's not something that's done or seen. And if anybody does, then I go back to the whole Jim Jones, David Koresh thing, because I've heard women tell me like that men have told them, well, in order to join this coven, you have to sleep with me or have sex with me. And that's like, that's not something that should be done. No one should be forced to do anything that they feel uncomfortable with. So I have to point out to you that, there is no, they call themselves lords and ladies, but it doesn't mean that means anything. It's just, it's a title, but it's not a honorific or something that has to be done. Now, high priest, during the course of the ritual, the high priest and the high priestess embody the physical aspect of the divine. Like the male indicates he's the male, and the female, but the divine female and the divine male, as in the Lord and the Lady. But that's the only time they really have, any type of social hierarchy. And maybe when they do the cakes and ale, which is much like the, body and blood of Christ, just to let you know, that comes from the Egyptians and Osiris. That isn't an original Christian concept either. In fact, if you look at the Egyptian Book of the Dead, you can read right in there where it says, eat of this bread that is my body and drink of this blood, wine that is my blood. So, I again tell you that all religions go back to one source. But there is no, maybe when they're serving the cakes and ale, they call it, they would stop at the high priestess first, the one that was conducting, because she is viewed as more even sacred or holy than the male aspect of the divinity. They hold the female because the female gives birth and creates. They say, I believe in the Great Mother, and there's the specific coven that my wife belongs to has the Articles of Faith, and basically they say believes in the Great Mother, creator of life, and in the great Lord that stands by her side, master of life and death, protector and Father divine, and the sanctity of the earth, and the earth, air, fire, and water. But that's just specific to their group. Maybe not all people would believe that or say that, you know what I mean? So I can't say, again, it's very eclectic. There's a group of Wiccans called Dianics, and they refuse to let men participate in their rituals. Typically, they're just strictly female. And then there's a group of gay guys, they're not as like strict like that, but they're mostly men. But again, it just like you have Baptist, Presbyterian, Methodist, just like you have Sunnis, Shiites, Wasabis, they're all different facets of Wicca. Social taboos. Well, definitely some pagans are polyamorous, which means they may be with somebody but enjoy many different sexual partners, both the man and the woman in the relationship. But is that just strictly with Wicca? I would suggest to you there are many people that practice that have nothing to do with Wicca. They don't believe in killing animals. They believe in honoring the earth, and they believe in putting out good stuff. So, I mean, where's the bad in that? I could even quote Jesus for you: when you've done it unto the least of mine, you have done it unto me. I've also studied the Bible, the Quran, and the Bhagavad Gita, so I'm well versed in multiple religions, not just, I live by a very simple set of rules. The second rule I live by is trouble no one about their religion, respect others and their views, and demand that they respect yours. Now, demand may be a strong word, but you should extend the respect and courtesy to others and expect them to extend that same. I find it incredibly hilarious that our country was based on religious freedom. That's how our country was founded. Yet there seems to be a lot of judgment by a lot of different people on everybody else's religion. And why? People came here because they wanted religious freedom, but yet there's all this judgment.